To another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV with your host here, Dano, giving you the best content you're going to find on the internet. And today we are here with Major Richard Sanchez, who has done so many incredible things inside the city of Camden through the Salvation Army's Kroc Center. And we have so much to talk about for today. Major Sanchez, what do you have to say to the Positivity Posse before we get started?
Well, definitely. Before I get started, and I want to make sure that I start with what I end with, to make sure to go to CamdenCrocCenter.org for any information and for more information, just so that you can get involved with us.
Beautiful. And you guys are in for such a great episode for today. We have a lot to talk about in such a short amount of time. So let's get started with another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. So everybody, we have so much to cover in such a short amount of time. So Major Sanchez, you have served over 8 appointments with over 25 years of experience. And here's the first question to start out the episode. What in the world is even a major?
Yeah, so that is a good question. So Salvation Army, we got its name from starting in 1865 in London, England. And there was a Methodist minister that went out and he wanted to bring the public into the churches. And he was very effective at doing that. That was William Booth. During those years in London, England, they were experiencing their industrial revolution. And so there were a lot of those same problems where you had people moving from farm life to factory life. And people were kind of using bad coping mechanisms. So there was alcoholism, and there was a lot of the problems that we see now for first world countries that were happening in there. And so when he went out to bring people into the churches, there wasn't a warm welcome that he received. And so he decided to branch off and start his own organization. It was actually for a short time called the Volunteer Army, but he scratched that out and said, we're going to put our business right up at the front, Salvation Army. And so our mission is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and to meet human needs in his name without discrimination. And so all Salvation Army officers go into a training school. There's a military terminology. The training school is really a seminary, and you're there as a first-year cadet, second-year cadet. And when you graduate, you're ordained and you're commissioned. You're sent to a different spot. And so we will be ordained and commissioned as lieutenants. And after 5 years, you become a captain. After those 10 years, you become a major. So what major means is that I'm a pastor in the Salvation Army, I'm ordained minister, and I'm old. So I've been doing it for a long time.
We love that you've done, because I know I have experienced the wonderful work that you've done here at the Kroc Center. This was actually my second gym that I ever joined. The first one was actually about 25 minutes away. I believe it was Sin and Minson. I say 25 minutes because there was a lot of traffic on the way over there.
Right.
But, you know, just to come here and to help us with our physical health, our mental health, and our spiritual health, that is just made such a world of a difference in my world. So thank you for that. And on behalf of the residents of Camden and the surrounding areas as well. With all of your experience, I know that the city of Camden specifically has grown and evolved throughout the years, the 10 years that you've been here. What have you done, or how challenging was it to meet the challenges of the city in real time?
If you sit and listen to the stakeholders that were involved in actually making sure that this Kroc Center came to fruition, it can write several movies. Like you can have a trilogy of movies. Where we stand on this 26 acres used to be a brownfield, and I had no understanding of what a brownfield meant until I actually came in here, and it was a literal dump,
Wow.
basically. And all these 26 acres now, where we sit, along with Camden Waterfront Park, it was all a dump. And so when we talk about community being underserved, feeling as if they've been left out, the Camden City, and more specifically Kramer Hill, where we sit, has really been impacted. And so 10 years ago, there was a plan, and they were going to do something with this land. And there were plans for having a golf course out here and other plans that may have been discussed. But what the community didn't want was gentrification. So there's, the opposite of gentrification, which is the improvements, is revitalization. And so what we believe we played a role in is not the gentrification of Kramer Hill, but the revitalization. And we can see that through the metrics that we're recording. If you were to go onto Zillow and look for homes in this area, anywhere that's close, you can see one of the things that they point as a positive is the proximity to the Kroc Center. And so because we feel that we've really transformed this community, people no longer are driving by a dump. There's no longer the safety issues with the children playing in the dump. And that happened because many people saw our plan and backed our plan. So we really want to highlight that.
In addition to the housing improvement in the area, what are some other metrics that you use to indicate that you're actually making the change that you say you've implemented?
Definitely. So in the 10 years that the Kroc has been here, we have 2.5 million people that are coming in. And that 2.5 million is an amazing number. But when you look at the thousands of people that we serve throughout the month, in 2 days, we're going to have a drive-through where we're going to serve over 1,800 families, where people will drive through. They're going to get turkeys, they're going to get fresh produce, they're going to get shelf-stable food. And this is for all of the families that are in our neighborhood. So it's 1,800 families, and then you go from 3 to 5 people in the family. So now you have to multiply that number. So we're going to be serving thousands of people in our 10-year anniversary. But then looking at, I'm a pastor, so I like to alliterate. So we have food, faith, fun, family, friends, fitness, all of the different F's that we hit. You look at that, and we're using those as metrics. Just a simple thing that I point to as one of our great victories is when we deal with food, we have a different paradigm. When I was serving in my 8 different appointments as a Corps officer and we had food pantry, people would come on in and we would have the food pantry, go to the food banks, pack up the bags of food, give them the food, and they would go out and we would help. But here we have a food choice. And so when people make appointments, they'll come on into our food pantry and you can walk around the food pantry and select what it is that your family likes. It was very interesting. In Salem, Massachusetts was my previous appointment. And when we started to go through the pandemic, more people that have never been through the system started to come in, and you can see the 1,000-yard stare. They don't know what to ask for. They don't know who to ask for. They don't know even if they qualify. We let them know that they did. And newer people. And so we had a different population where the majority of the population in Salem that we were seeing were predominantly Hispanic, but newer people came in. These were of Russian descent. And so there's different culture, there's different food choices as well. And so we would see sometimes people would kind of pick through the bags and leave certain things, and they weren't trying to be troublesome, but we've solved that problem here. So it's food choice. And so when we would go to the food bank, we would go with our 15-passenger van. We'd have a trailer where you can possibly only max that trailer out to 5,000 pounds of food. But we have partner agencies that came in, that saw the need. Holman came through in a big way. Holman gave us a grant, and we were able to purchase a 26-foot box truck with a lift gate. So now when we go to South Jersey Food Bank, we'll just back up the box truck, and instead of having a limit of 5,000 pounds of food, we can go 35,000, we can go 45,000. And we're not killing the volunteers, because if you go with a trailer to a food bank, you have a loading dock that's a certain height, and the forklift can only just drop the pallet, and all the volunteers would have to come, break the pallet down, and move that 5,000 pounds of food into a trailer. Now, we don't break the volunteers' backs because they're all here. The 35,000 pounds of food, we have an electric forklift with the donations that people have been giving. So we've expanded our capacity. We have gone, and scalability is a big word in technology, but we want to use that even in services that we do.
So if you didn't know, now you know. I mean, there's so many different metrics that you've done. Like you said, all the 6 F's, I believe. Could you say those again? What would?
So we have food, family, fun, faith, and fitness. So yeah, those are the 5. But you know, the other metrics is the number of families that we serve. We serve thousands, literally thousands. We have an after-school program that is always at its limit. We keep kids from early childhood all the way through to high school. And then after high school, some of those kids, because we have so many different remarkable stories of success. We have one person who is a lifeguard here. I'm thinking about Orlando. And Orlando came because he used to live in Ablett Village down the road, and him and his family came for assistance. And he became a church member, and he was in our after-school program. He graduated, is now going to college, but he's also working as a lifeguard here. And so he's able to stay in the community. You know, another metric is the employing of over 50% of Camden City residents. Go to our membership, we have over 60% of Camden members that are here. So there's lots of metrics, and I don't want to bore you with all of the different metrics, but you know, we are definitely expanding and scaling to make sure that we continue this impact that we have.
Beautiful. And I've experienced this great impact as well. So if you are not familiar with the Kroc Center, please come out. And especially they're going to be having Kroc Fest, which is this weekend on October 5th. And we're going to dive a little bit more into that. You want to stick around for that, because that is when we are going to talk about all the fun, all the service, all the fellowship, and everything that goes with the 10-year anniversary, which is Kroc Fest. So stick around, and we'll be right back after a word from our first sponsor.
Takes a village about keeping our families together.
God bless this organization.
Thank you so much to It Takes a Village Housing for sponsoring Weekly Dose of Dano TV. And we have to jump right back into this great content that we always give you week in and week out. So Major Sanchez, I know you just mentioned specifically about the people and the residents that you serve, that they go in and they have that 1,000 yards there and they're not sure what to do or what to say, but they know that they need help. Those are only the situations from the residents that we hear that have the courage and the humbleness and humility to come and say, hey, I need help. But what about the people that don't have that courage, or they think that they don't qualify, or they're scared? What advice would you have to give for them in order for them to come out and to see all of the great work that the Kroc offers?
Yeah, so definitely the first thing is CamdenCrocCenter.org. We want people to go on there, and there's different buttons that you can select depending on what your need is. We do have social services. We do have an MSW here, and so she'll be able to help you out. We can definitely connect people with the agencies or the nonprofit organizations that will meet their needs. And if we can't meet them, we'll point you to who can.
So thank you for everything that you do. But now I want to talk about your time as an administrator. And as much great work as you do, it's not always rainbows and sunshines and butterflies. There have been some hard times along the way. So in your tenure here at the Camden Kroc Center, can you talk about a decision that was particularly difficult for you to make and how that decision impacted the residents of Camden?
Yeah, there's plenty of decisions, and those decisions really surround lots of boring things like operational items, right? For mission impact, and we have a board internally that's our headquarters. It's a Mission Alignment Council, just to make sure that we're doing what it is that we say that we do. So any difficult decision that we've had to wrestle with has just been operational, and I can't really recall any impact that will bleed out into Camden County that is negative. The impact that we're sharing, such as the partner agencies, have all been positive to help us to scale. But operationally, there are the increases in inflation, and so there was a big, maybe the one that I can think of would be the price change, and we have to shift that so that we can make it easier. When we came in, there was different options, and that made it a little bit cumbersome with the membership desk and to make sure that everything was recorded, and also the time it takes to process people to become members was a little bit too long. So we saw that, we took that into account, and we kind of streamlined into one price. And because of inflation, we'll have a new price coming out. But we wanted just to make sure that we let people know that that is for more benefit than anything else. We want to continue to offer the same high level of excellence in everything that we do. So that's my answer for that.
Yeah. And you just brought up a great point, and it was about inflation.
Yeah.
With so many different things changing now, times are uncertain, people may be scared or whatever is going on, which we know what we focus on grows, right? So if you are watching and you are scared out there, just make sure that you are tuning to a different channel, so to speak. Make sure we're focusing on positive content and positive things inside of your community that's going on. Specifically here in Camden, we have the Kroc Center, and that's why we are bringing you this wonderful, uplifting content. What is one thing that when you started here at the Kroc Center was a point of focus that now is not really a point of focus because you've done so much to counteract it?
Yeah, so definitely one of the issues was that little, the roadblock and the bottleneck we had at member services. And we had some new policies with inflation, new pricing, and we're just going to continue to improve on that. But I really have to applaud our team here. You talk about people that are working here. It's a nonprofit, so you're not working for Facebook or Meta, right? or Alphabet, Google, and things like that. The people that are here are really in it to serve the community. So we have seen that. And in my 14 months here, I've seen people that are enduring. When you talk about positive things, one of the things that I want to share with people, which is my passion in industrial organizational psychology, is that it's important for personal importance to build tenacity, to build resilience. And like you talked about, what you feed your mind with is really going to affect those things. The more you are doom scrolling and looking at negative things, the less amount of mental energy that you're going to have to shift everything to the positive. But what I have seen in my employees is, and what I want to build in, is that tenacity. And tenacity is in the mind, and resilience is in the heart. When people, you're watching things like Rocky or movies, and the person says that person has heart, it means that they have overcome failure. right? And so in a community that has really been underrepresented, underserved, and things like that, it's a community that is full of resilience, that's full of heart, and never giving up. So, I've seen people that have continually come on in, and we want to be there for that. And so fitness plays a big role, being a place where people can come in and fellowship. Another area of focus that I really love is our seniors. Now, 9/11 came and went, and I was stationed in New Jersey. And what we saw was a very interesting paradigm. We saw people that were stressed out, naturally, because we're not made to witness all the violence that happened during 9/11. What we did find that there was increase in generalized anxiety, there was an increase in depression, there was an increase in panic attacks and anxiety attacks. But what psychology and research has found is that the people that were able to do something about it, those ones that came to Salvation Army, then we were stationed in Dover, New Jersey, and they said, I want to do something. Please put me to do something. Is there anything I can do? I want help. Those people were less susceptible. They overcame these generalized anxiety. They overcame this depression quicker than the people that felt powerless to do anything. And so when we go out and we help, one of the things I like to tell people, organizations, agencies, is that in helping, you're not only helping the community, but you're helping yourself. When you talk about your positivity posse, you can help them by promoting volunteering, because the side effect of that, the fringe benefit of that, is going to be not only you're blessing others, but you're going to experience a blessing. I have a story where people would come on in and help with our toy distribution. And my wife runs that. So if you have any questions, you can talk to, again, CamdenCrocCenter.org. Go and find out about that. But families will come in, we'll do an intake. We'll talk about how many children they have, the ages, their wishes, and companies will purchase that and bring those toys in. Some of those corporations bring their employees in for distribution day, and they actually get to encounter the single parent household. When you encounter those families where you're giving them the bags of food and the tears start to flow, I've had to walk away several times, because you see that, and you see the emotions of the parent that thought that they weren't going to be able to provide for their child that Christmas, and we help them out. And even the volunteers that come in on are just volunteering, and they're seeing the tears, and they're knowing that they have an impact, that their company purchased these things, that we're giving this out to the families, and they leave blessed inevitably each time.
Beautiful. And I just want to make a big point, is that this doesn't happen only around the holidays. This is going on all year round, with all of the countless events that you do within the city, outside the city, but most of them are in. It's really heartwarming and beautiful to, number one, experience it, like I said before, in the physical self. But this is what we need more of. It's not always like that with some organizations that are coming into the city. Talk a little bit about the way that your employment works here, because it really is serving the community. And if there's any advice that you have for other organizations that want to come into the city, what advice would you have to give for them?
So, diversity, equity, and inclusion is very, very big. And that's not only in the for-profit, but also in the nonprofit. We have that in mind, from even the including in our pool area where people may have some disabilities. We want people to know that we have facilities that accommodate those things. But going specifically to your question, to make sure that we answer it directly, over 50% of our employees are from Camden, and over 60% of members that come on through our doors daily are Camden residents. And so, super important to us. We have been focusing on making sure that we have bilingual member associates. So it's a big thing. And it wasn't always, and we saw the need. And so we wanted to shift to make sure that we're able to impact that, so that there's not any fear that you won't be able to communicate, that you can come in and translate and you can be heard. So those two things I'm very proud of. The other thing that I want to share for organizations to come on it is, again, to visit the website, because you'll have pictures of our facilities, but even to come on in is nothing like coming into the Kroc Center and in person looking at this 26 acres and seeing that safety is one of the number one priorities. And so, Camden has had been in the news 10 years ago, but I have seen the shift and the change, and that's very important to know that Camden is safe. Camden is welcoming. Camden is on a transition that's going upward. So, I have been at many different, even Camden county meetings, and I know the mayor personally, and he has come to support not only the mayor, but so many of the council members, the different ward departments and chairs have been here, and in one way or another have helped the Camden Kroc Center. So we are coming together to collaborate. So that's the other C. We're very collaborative. So it's important to us.
Don't go anywhere. Like, share, do whatever you have to do to keep your vibes high. And if there's somebody that you think that can learn from this information and for this episode, please be sure to share it, because you never know who you might be helping along the way. So we'll be right back after a word from our second sponsor.
At Grade Success, it's our job to make sure that your child succeeds in school regardless of the subject or grade level. Our tutors are trained professionals who know how to promote learning and encourage results. Whether you are looking for help with SAT, ACT prep, private and group tutoring, K-3 reading programs for your child, or educational consulting and college counseling, here at Grade Success, we can help you find the right answer. Visit gradesuccess.com to learn more about our in-person and online program options. Grade Success, where your child's success is our business.
Welcome back, everybody. That was a word from our second sponsor from Great Success. Thank you so much to Great Success for sponsoring Weekly Dose of Dano TV. But now we're going to dive into the fun stuff here, and we are going to be talking about Kroc Fest. So Major Sanchez, it's hard to really encapsulate into words how great and wonderful and service-filled Kroc Fest is going to be. So what is Kroc Fest and what can people expect?
All right, so we'll try to encapsulate that. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be fantastic. You can expect to have the most fun that you've ever had in Camden City ever in a whole lifetime. I think Ben is going to be very proud that I pushed that. So what we wanted to do was mirror what happened 10 years ago when we opened up the doors, and it was a weekend of events, ribbon cutting. Many different partner agencies, organizations came, backed us up and supported us. And we're going to do the very same thing, except again, the scalability magic word, we have scaled it up to many more thousands of people coming in to the building as well as on our fields. So yeah, we're mirroring what happened 10 years ago. But it's also important that I mention that Salvation Army has been in South Jersey area for more than 10 years. So a lot of people may not know this, but we have been in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area for 144 years. And almost immediately after the Salvation Army was founded in 1865, you have some Salvation Army lassies. Those are soldiers and officers that had come over and started opening works in Battery Park in New York City, as well as Philadelphia. So we've been in the community for over 100 years. Very important to say that. But the Kroc Center, now going back, as Ray and Joan Kroc of McDonald's fame, they gifted to the Salvation Army $1.5 billion. And that was specifically for Kroc Centers. Ray and Joan Kroc Core Community Center is actually our full name, RJKCCC, which is too long a name, so we call ourselves Camden Kroc. But the goal and the idea was that Joan Kroc, who lived then at that time in California, I believe it's San Diego, was the first Kroc Center. She wanted to make sure that there was access. And so whether it was a kid from Beverly Hills having a top of the line access to fitness centers and areas where included faith centers, or whether it was a kid from Compton, she wanted to make sure that that access was equal across the board. And so Kroc Centers were built in underserved communities so that that access can be leveled. So when we talk about making sure, or me expressing one of the things that I'm proud of, is that we're hitting that metric of access to all, regardless of whatever socioeconomic level that you find yourself in, you're going to have the access to the best. And so opportunity for us is this Kroc Fest, this 10-year anniversary. We're going to have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday activities. The Friday is going to be huge, where we'll have people coming in, and it'll be a drive-through of families where we'll give out those turkeys, we'll give out the food. It'll be over 1,000 families coming to get that help. That's going to be Friday. Saturday, we're going to have open doors, and we're going to have so many things. I'm afraid to go down the list for fear of missing something, but it will be kicked off by a parade that's going to happen out front here. It's going to be a short parade, and then we'll open the doors, and people will be able to experience the Kroc in all of its magnificence. All of the doors will be open. Of course, the offices will be closed, but every area where we hold programs will be open for the public. They'll be able to come on and see our classroom, see our computer lab, see our music lab, see the classroom that children access. They'll be able to see the black box, which is a performance space. We had Philadelphia Ballet come on in and hold a performance here. They'll be able to see Town Plaza. In our field, we'll have a concert after that's open. So we're going to have many agencies, many organizations here actually helping us and making sure that people are aware of what services they offer. And then Sunday, we top it off with another rededication. We're going to have a general, one of the retired generals of the Salvation Army here. That's top of the line. You can't go further than that. He'll be here to help us do our rededication. We'll also have a retired commissioner who ran the Western Territory of the Salvation Army. And we're going to have our staff band here. So all are welcome. And we want to see everybody here over the weekend.
Wow. And if you're doing this now, I can't wait to see what the 100-year anniversary is going to look like.
It'll be amazing.
Yeah, God willing, right?
That's right.
So there's so many different milestones and things that you could have saved this for, right? Like I know I just said it, the 100-year, the 50-year, the 25-year. Why is it that you decided to do this now for the 10th year?
It's super important. We discovered that when the pandemic happened and that there was sort of a withdrawal, and we wanted to make it as big as possible so that we can get people back into our community here, so that we can have people understand that the fellowship is still active, so that we can have people understand that everything is safe. And again, is what you said, what you pay attention to grows, or what it can go both ways, but we want to make sure that it goes in the positive aspect. We can overlook it, but 10 is such a round number, and it's a perfect opportunity for people to know what it is that we do, and even to have a party. And you have new administrators come on in, and I love a party, so why not? Bring the Camden community out and let people know what it is that we do. I just want to share a side story. When you talk about being impacted by what we do here, I myself, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and single parent household. Mom and dad divorced when I was 10 years old. And so mom had it difficult. And so I was one of those 1980s latchkey kids. I remember coming home and not having food. I share the story, and then people have heard it. And, I'm going in after school looking for food. And Dano, I made a salt sandwich, because there was really nothing else. I mean, I told you can laugh.
No, it's not funny,
but people
but
the story, because there wasn't any cold cuts, there wasn't any cheese, there wasn't not even mayo. Like, you could do the whole mayo.
Yeah,
it was nothing there, and I that was what I ate. But I do recall going to the churches to get the government food, the government cheese, all these things that were government subsidies, and churches were there to kind of help make sure that there isn't that food insecurity. That's another thing that's growing now, this food insecurity, because of inflation, that we want to positively impact, or we want to reduce that. So I have a vested interest, because I'm a child of a single parent household, and I see that all around. So if I can do a party, and if I can spread the knowledge, that's something that I want to do, because I remember what happened when I was able to go to the churches and receive that aid.
Thank you so much for being open and transparent, because there might be somebody out there that's experiencing the same thing, and you don't have to be ashamed of it. We like to use these opportunities because growing up here in the city of Camden, I have my fair share of things that are similar to you, gangs and violence and, single mother household and all these different things. We use these as opportunities to learn and to grow from. So if you are experiencing this, please understand this is a part of your journey. This is what's going to give you that drive and that fight to keep going forward. And as you heard with Major Sanchez, you use these opportunities to help other people that might be in these same forums, in these same situations, experiences, and that's going to lead you further along your path and along your calling to what God has called you, because that's what we believe in here. But maybe if you don't believe in God, whatever you choose to believe in, make sure that you are doing it from a place of love, from selflessness, and that place of just trying to serve others, which here at the Kroc Center, they constantly do for 10 years. And I'm hoping it's going to be 1,000 more years.
That's right.
But I don't think we're going to be around to experience it. But for the people that experience it then, shout out to you guys. I hope you get to see this 1,000 years from now. Major Sanchez, this all stems from your leadership. And if the top of the pyramid is shaky and it doesn't come from a strong foundation, then everything else is going to crumble as a result of that. What morals or what values do you instill into your staff members or volunteers while working with the Kroc Center?
So there's a few, but my leadership philosophy is that everyone, and when I talk about everyone, I'm talking about the whole team, gets the praise. And if there is something that's a problem, then typically I like to make sure that I'm the one who's making sure to deal with it. And so I'm not sure who said it. It was one of the presidents, or maybe it was somebody else. Some of your positivity posse can fact check, but they say that success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. But in my philosophy of leadership, I want to make sure that I take responsibility for whatever failure that there is. And if there is success, it's the team. It's important. So when we talk about values that I want to instill in the way that I lead, is that I want to help build a couple of things. And again, from my love of organizational psychology, what I have found is there's a lot of burnout in the social service fields or the helping professions. And the reason that there is a lot of burnout is because people feel, or their perspective is that once they start to do X, Y, Z, that these are going to be the automatic benefits. And so what I really want to instill is a proper perspective, a realistic perspective. And so the way to do that is to build competence. And I have been in 8 different appointments. I've been an officer for more than 25 years. And I have seen that my own perspective changing and to being more realistic. And I've also battled against cynicism. That's one of the things that is another marker of burnout, is cynicism. One is emotional exhaustion, it's cynicism, and the other one is inefficacy, where you feel like the work that you're doing is not having any results. And so what I want to do as a leader is combat those things directly. And the emotional exhaustion is an easy thing that we can combat, right? Looking at the way that people interact with others and making sure that we give them positive ways of dealing with those, and making sure that people that are coming on in are being dealt with immediately. There's people that come on in and, it's almost like the Snickers commercial where people are having bad day. They're not themselves, right? And so I have to tell my member associates, I say, look, when people share these things, don't take it personally. They may be having a bad day. How about we approach it this way and kind of de-escalate the situation? And when you teach people these things, it gives them the freedom to allow people to vent for a little bit. And when people vent for a little bit, they feel a lot more unburdened. Mm-hmm. And it's like they're eating an emotional or mental Snickers bar, and they can change that. So I really want to build competence in my staff. I really want to build a proper sense of perspective. letting people know what is an actual realistic expectation. And once those things are there, it'll reduce the emotional exhaustion, it will reduce the cynicism, and it will increase people's efficacy, because now they can say, hey, I can use this metric where I talk to people and instead of talking to people for 30 seconds, I engage people for 2 minutes. Well, how is that a metric, Dano? Well, if people, because normally people are in a rush, but if they stop and they talk to you and you ask questions, open-ended questions, questions about them, and you've extended your interaction time from 30 seconds to 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes, that means that people are open. They're feeling free to share. And also in that sharing, there is that unburdening, there's that connection, there's that fellowship that will help increase your sense of efficacy. So reducing burnout. So that's important to me. I want to reduce burnout in my staff and also in my members.
Now we are getting to what Weekly Dose of Dano TV is all about. This is the kind of stuff that we cover every single week, not only because it sounds good and that it's motivating, but this is the real, techniques and strategies that we can use to overcome whatever is going on in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for sharing that too, because that's what I'm all about. My ways that I do that, I like to journal a lot, number one. And I know on October 24th, this is my little shameless plug, but I'm coming out with a journal to help people overcome their limiting beliefs. So be on the lookout for that. Number two, my favorite thing in the world is meditation. And I'm just a huge practice. I practice it every single day. My world has changed so a complete 180 in the positive direction just from trying those things. And now, well, not trying them, from practicing them for so long over and over. Major Sanchez, what are some of the techniques or practices that you personally do to help improve your mental state, your spiritual state, and your physical state? Because it's easy to come on here to talk about it. And somebody watching that's a part of the Positivity Posse, maybe they're not a part of the Positivity Posse just yet, which they will be once after they see this episode. It's the people that are actually practicing this every single day that make the impact. And you can see it. Like I can see when I talk to you, I see your light shining. The way that you speak is very eloquent. And that all comes from, that personal development and working on yourself. So to somebody that's out there that's watching right now and they want to implement this, but they're not sure how to start, what advice would you have to give to them?
Wow, Dano, you're going to open up the fire hose. So there's a lot of information. We may need to do a part 2.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, this is what we love talking about. But if you want to do a part 2, we can do it.
So yeah, definitely. We can definitely talk about good and positive coping skills and mechanisms. So one of the things, again, in my leadership that I have shared is a couple of quotes. One quote is that you do not rise to the level of your expectation. Because a lot of people believe that, I've done this training. You fall to the level of your training. I'll repeat that again. That was a Roman senator, Archilochus, I think his name was. You don't rise to the level of your expectation. You will always fall to the level of your training. I have served in emergency disaster services. I have taken pastoral counseling. I have taken suicide counseling, prevention, postvention. My brother was EMT in the FDNY. And so when I talk about burnout, when I talk about negative experiences, when I talk about suffering, growing up in Brooklyn during the 80s, it was a very hard time. The Brooklyn that you see and now on social media is very gentrified, totally different. So I worked through this personal experience. Now, the eloquent person, thank you for that. The eloquent person that you see sitting here before you is not the same person that was born in Brooklyn. Brooklyn, I learned how to ask questions until I got to my high school teacher, and he's like, no, you can't ask a question. And everyone was confused. And so Mr. Finkelstein, thank you out there, Mr. Finkelstein, wherever you are, he said, you must learn how to ask a question. Simple thing, but he was bringing us up. So all these things are things that I've had to learn. So when getting back to your question about coping mechanisms and skills, number one for me is faith. And that is the most important. That is what has helped me. So Archilochus said that you don't rise to the level of your expectation, you fall to the level of your training. But in Proverbs, it says, as a man thinks, so he is, right? So that's why meditation is going to help. If you go to Joshua had the encounter with the Lord's angel, and he said, make sure that you meditate on this book. That word is there. Meditate on this book. Do not stray to the right or to the left, and then you will be successful. You will be prosperous in everything that you do. It's a meditation promise in the scripture. And so, a lot of people that are Christians, when they hear the word meditate, they kind of shy away from it because they're thinking of 1960s and 70s, out of body experience. We're not talking about that.
Yeah, New Age experience and New Age
Exactly,
methodology. Yeah.
What we're talking about is even you can use it for business. So I'll give you the business word. So the business word for meditation is metacognition. It's thinking about what you're thinking about. That's why journaling is so helpful, because a lot of people experience these setbacks and these emotions, and they don't really actually question themselves. What thoughts are going through my head? And inevitably, those thoughts will be, you're so stupid. I'm so dumb. Why I'm such an idiot. Stop that, because you're only doing yourself a disservice. When you start to write these things down and you start to meditate on what you've written down, then you can take those thoughts and you can actually examine them. Are they true? Well, it may be that you failed to do these things, but in the scripture, and then you have to combat it with actual objective spiritual truth, right? If we're talking about someone who's a believer, sometimes you say, I failed, I sinned, I did this. Well, what's the remedy for that? The remedy for that is forgiveness, right? And so you go, you ask for forgiveness. Now you have that guilt and that shame that kind of motivated you to do that. But how do you then go past that? Well, you know that you're forgiven because the scripture says that you are. Jesus died on the cross for your sins so that you can be forgiven. Then if you have impacted anyone else, you go and, you confess your sins. That's another spiritual principle, it's confession. Journaling is almost like confession, where you don't have that high impact. You're confessing to yourself. No one else needs to read that. Your future self will be able to come back and say, oh man, look at how immature, or look at how skewed my belief was in this way. It's important that you take into account what you have written down, and they take into account actual truth. So those are important. That's number one for me, is the faith. God's truth can direct me into understanding who I am. Bible says the righteous man falls down 7 times, but gets up 8. So wait a minute. So it's okay to fail? Yes, it's okay to fail. You're going to fail. You're human. But what's not okay is to stay on the ground. What's not okay is to not examine the failure and then positively build off of that.
This is what we love to talk about, right? Because these are the things that not many people get to experience, or they don't hear, or they're not really taught. We weren't taught this when we were younger, so now we want to help other people. So I want to go back to what you said and dissect that a little bit when you were talking about meditation and journaling, and specifically about our thoughts. We have to examine what our thoughts are initially coming into our head. We have to understand that we don't have to identify with these thoughts. Thoughts in this world, whether they're given through us by our community, by our family members, by the media, social media, all these things are designed to make the dollar, right? And with these things that make the dollar, if you look on the news, everything is a shock factor, it's a fear factor. When we understand that these are the influences that we have on our everyday basis, that is what's leading to these negative thoughts. So when we understand that, then we can say, okay, well, even though these thoughts are coming into my head, I don't have to identify with that. Hey, I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid. I'm not a moron, or whatever the thoughts. I'm not lovable enough, which is another big one that people think about. But we have to understand we are beyond our thoughts. We are spiritual beings, and we are here having a human being experience. When it comes to the truth that Major Sanchez just mentioned, the truth is coming from a place of love, of understanding, of peace, of joy, happiness, and things that are all at a high vibration. Because I know you guys have seen it on the chart so many times. There is a vibrational scale that we all live by, and when we're at the high vibes, we experience that peace, that joy, understanding, happiness. And at the bottom of that chart, which I'll show during the episode as well, is when we experience that apathy, or that grief, or that anger. So with that being said, it is so important that we are so conscious of what we are thinking about, and that we're thinking about it from a place of truth, because as Major Sanchez believes as well, when you believe in God and in that higher faith or Jesus or whatever it is, they instill us with the truth all the time, no matter what. It's the other side of that coin that is from the opposing forces, if you believe that, or things that are instilling this negativity and fear. They're not coming from a place of truth and from God. So why would you listen to them in the first place? And that's exactly what they're designed to do. Going back to your journaling portion that you mentioned when you were talking about confession, I also think it's another way to release, right? Because when it comes to working out for the physical body, that is how we release, and we can mitigate and kind of control our energy. Because I know for young men out there, we have all of this built up energy, and unfortunately, we use it for things that don't serve us, which is, masturbation and porn and all that stuff. But when we mitigate our energy levels through the physical mind, the physical body, the mental mind, and the spiritual mind, that is how we can go forward and carve the path that is meant to happen in our lives. And finally, there was the example what you said about, getting up that 8th time. And a lot of people, it's so interesting how they ask for strength from God or from the universe or whatever you believe in. They ask for strength from God, and when God gives them the experiences that they need to experience strength, that's when they think that it's not possible, and that's when they don't get up. So if you are asking for these things, understand that it's meant to serve you, to really get you to that next level that you want to get to, and that everything is what we say it's going to be. We imbue the positive meaning that we give to every situation in our lives.
Well said. One of the things that we used to say out in the street is that everybody wants heaven, no one wants death. If you want patience, don't be surprised at those circumstances that come along to test your patience. If you want strength, don't be surprised at those circumstances that come along when you think that you're at the end of your strength. It's the only way to build endurance and strength is to go over, above, and beyond what you think your limit is. And that's another important thing, is to not set any limitation. Very important, so that you can continue to go. Again, talking about scriptural truth in Proverbs, it's one of the very famous verses is, trust in the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And so it's super important when people talk about, faith. It's different than someone trying to ask for reasons for the existence of God. People go into different areas, but reasoning for God and your own personal walk should be different. You should have a personal experience with God. You should definitely try him in those things. But then reasoning for the faith and trying to learn your scripture is super important. But we're going back to what you're talking about. It is really important in what you're thinking about, because then you'll be able to examine and you'll be able to hold captive those thoughts. This is another scriptural term. And then you had to bring in truth alongside. You talked about young men. One of the stigmas that I find is the mental health stigma, right? Where people are, I don't want to journal. You have a diary. Oh my God, look, call it a journal, call it a diary, call it, whatever it is. But you need to record those thoughts. You need to actually see them documented. You need to make sure that if you don't have an answer to these things, that you find an answer. And counselors, people that are mentors, are super important. People that are advanced in business, almost always you'll hear in social media, oh, my mentor said this, my mentor said that. And, if you want to call your counselor mentor, feel free. It's the business thing, so let's do the business thing. Have a mentor is really important. Have more than one, and in different areas. Right. So you may not want to talk to me about physical fitness because I'm not David Goggins, but you can definitely talk to me about the scripture. I'll go to talk to David Goggins about physical fitness or about endurance or about making sure that I maintain my streak. and he'll set me straight right away. Have these
real.
different mentors in these different areas of life. It's super important. And I like what you're doing. It's very positive. And I definitely think, a more focused interview on whatever it is that you want to talk about. If it's industrial organizational psychology, I'm your man.
I'm not your guy, so you don't have to worry about that. To the positivity posse, you don't have to worry about that either. But for sure, we have to come together to do this again. But let's really go back to the reason that we had this today. And it's because, number one, to highlight all of the great work that you have done, that Zach has done, that Ben has done, John, Jerome Martin, all of these wonderful employees and people that you have here that have come together, is to highlight that. But number two, to talk about this great Kroc Fest that you're having for the 10-year anniversary. So again, can you tell us a little bit about what the Kroc Fest is and what people can expect?
So Kroc Fest, for sure, it's an open door celebration, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's going to be open for all the community. And we want to make sure that everyone comes on in to experience concerts, giveaways, experience partnership with the different agencies that are here, and some government officials will be here, and you just have fun. We're going to give out food, and it'll be sure to have a good time, not only with the food, with the concert, but also with our Sunday service to culminate everything. 10
years is such a long time, and you've achieved so many things with different metrics and personal stories that you can attest to on how the Kroc is making such a big difference in the lives of the Camden residents and in the surrounding areas as well. What does the future for the Kroc Center look like?
Yeah, exciting. We definitely want to continue doing what it is that we were doing, and depending on the community needs, you'll find in different areas of the United States, there's going to be different manifestations of ministry that Salvation Army does. And so because we are so huge, we're going to continue doing what we've been doing, which is the early child care, the after-school programs, the senior programs, the senior feeding programs, the family feeding programs, the fitness programs, the senior fitness programs, basketball, open gym partnership with Camden County PD, and all these other numerous partnerships that we do with so many agencies that, again, I don't want to fail to name those. Those are going to continue to be happening. The things that I can think of is that we're going to try to be scalable. So if the need increases, we know our partnerships will be there to help us fulfill those needs. There is a big push towards STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and a push to make sure that we have people that are Black and brown that are in those fields, as well as women in those fields. And we have a partnership with the Civil Air Patrol. That's a national partnership. And this year, we're going to make sure that they have a space here. They're trying to reestablish their brigade. I'm not sure what the proper word for it, a wing here in Camden City. And so they'll be here, and they're going to hold monthly classes. But at the same time, we'll have them as the subject matter experts for this STEM field. So we want to continue to be beneficial and even expand into new areas. And those are some of the areas that we're going to expand into in the next 10 years.
There's a lot to look out for here at the Kroc Center in Camden, New Jersey. A lot of people think that service and volunteerism is something that is monetary. But as we all know, doesn't have to be that way. So if there's somebody, a part of the Positivity Posse that's watching right now, what are some different ways that we can do to support and help your efforts here at the Camden Kroc Center?
Definitely. Super short and very direct. CamdenKrocCenter.org. You go to the website and you'll be able to look and see all of the different volunteer opportunities and all the different events. We have over 450 events a year, and how they can plug in, giving your time and giving of your talent, as well as your treasure. And if you don't have a treasure, just the time and the talent and who you know is very important.
So everybody, that's all the time we have today on Weekly Dose of Dano. For this week, as Major Sanchez said, we might have to have a part 2 to dive deeper into the coping tactics and everything that we talk about here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. I want to see you guys here this Saturday. Actually, it's a 3-day event. This is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but the big parade and all the fun is happening on October 5th here at 1865 Harrison Avenue in Camden, New Jersey at the Kroc Center. I hope to see you here. I will be here doing interviews, just recording content for everybody so you can see all the great work that Major Sanchez and everybody that's a part of his team is doing here at the Camden Kroc Center. So I hope to see you this weekend. Be safe, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Thank you so much, everybody. Peace. Thank you,
Awesome.
Major Sanchez.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Appreciate it. It was great.